What's up everyone? Kevin from Epic Gardening here. On this rainy day, I have a question for you. Have you ever been confused by the many different types of pruning shears and snips that are on the market? You've got bypass, you've got ANVIL, you've got these different snips with different types of blades, different material on the blades. It can get a little confusing, and when you're spending decent money on these tools, you want to make sure that you're choosing not only the right tool, the right quality tool, the right blade material, the right loading mechanism. All of those things actually matter in the garden. You want to pick a tool that's nice and durable, lightweight, but doesn't fatigue you. So in today's video, what we're going to do is we're taking a look at a bunch of different tools from Centurion Tools, who are the sponsor of the video, talking about why do you choose maybe a bypass over an ANVIL. So by the end of this video, you're going to know how to choose the right pruning shear for you. So let's go ahead and get right into it. The first set of pruners we're going to talk about are bypass pruners, and that's because they're really the first ones that you would buy if you could only buy one type of pruner. They are fantastic for precision cuts, clean cuts on live branches, oftentimes about an inch or so or less in diameter. Now that's because of the cutting mechanism. Aptly named, the bypass pruner will have a blade that will come by the stopping point right here and make a very clean, sharp cut. If you're grafting, if you're pruning on live branches, that is what you would use a bypass pruner for, and that is most of our tasks in the garden when it comes to a cutting task, and that's why bypass pruners should be your #1 buy as far as types of pruners if you could only choose one. If I want to come in here and take off this flower head from my pak choi, you can see I have a nice, less than an inch in diameter section here, and I can just come right through and make a very clean precision cut. So you can see the cut here is very precise. If I didn't want to damage my bok choy, which I do not, then that is a really good way to do it. I've only severed right here, but I haven't smashed any of the tissue on the other side, which is still sitting over there. Next we have ANVIL pruners, another aptly named device. Just like the bypass pruners, works very similarly, except for the fact that this blade does not pass by the stopper. It actually stops and crushes. So it's really good for breaking down dead branches, things where you don't really care so much about the integrity of the stem on the living plant afterwards. So, if you're pruning like a rose bush or a tree or even some vegetables, you often want what is left to be in good integrity, right? With an ANVIL pruner, that doesn't happen so much because of that smashing motion, but it will make really short work of dead branches. So here you can see I have a branch here, a little thin, but we're gonna go ahead and come through with an ANVIL pruner, and you can see that when we're pruning it off, sometimes it's very nice and clean because this is a little bit wetter, but normally you'll have some chopping and some fraying at these edges here. And really, I'm just trying to break this down to throw it in my compost eventually. I don't care if any of the stem is degraded or damaged because it's dead already. I don't really mind. I've broken it down really nicely. Here's a bit of a drier one, and we can see if it makes any difference here. See, there's more of a smashing that goes on, and it's compressing it a little bit and breaking it down. It's just, you can get a little more pressure on the device with an ANVIL pruner because you're getting something for the blade to press against, and the smashing can really help push through some of these dead branches as compared to a bypass pruner. Next, we have pruning snips or micro tips. There's a lot of different names for these, but as you can tell, they're all bypass by design. I've never really seen an ANVIL snip, but they're for precision tasks. They're basically scissors. Effectively, they're just very durable scissors. And so what you can do is you can come through and just make very fine cuts. If you're doing some pruning on thin, small stems, perhaps you're pruning basil, I have a video on that. Perhaps you're pruning your tomatoes, you're taking those suckers off. And generally speaking, you're gonna use these for very soft branches and stems, leaves, etc. You're gonna use them for precision tasks. Maybe you're deadheading a flower, for example. I probably use these more than my bypass pruners just because I am doing a little bit more of that finer work. I even use them inside and with my houseplants to come through, take off a dead leaf or do a quick little bit of pruning. Very, very useful. These are curved right here and these are straight, so it can kind of help you get into some awkward angles. But yeah, micro tips or pruning snips, super useful in the garden. So here we're looking at my bacopa plant, and I can come through, and this leaf's looking a little sickly. I can come through with my micro tips and get very precise and just come through, make a very clean cut, and remove this. I've damaged none of the plant, and it would be very hard to do that, these precision, really close-up cuts, with anything that's not this fine tipped. Blade quality. Let's talk about this. It got a little rainy outside. I am here in the houseplant kingdom. Okay, you've got two different types of materials. These two illustrate them very well. You have high carbon steel on these bypass pruners right here, and then you have classic stainless steel on these pruning SNIPS. Now, why would you choose one over the other? There are a couple different reasons. One is not better than the other. It is just a preference thing, and also how you use your pruners or your SNIPS in the garden. So first of all, high carbon steel is going to be a tougher metal. It's going to last a little bit longer. It's more resistant to dings, scrapes, etc. At the same time, it does rust a little bit faster. I do have a video on the upper right hand corner about how to derust your pruning tools, but you do want to keep this one much more out of the rain, moisture, etc. Oftentimes, like this one here, it will be coated with a non-stick, which is also going to protect it from rust, but also makes for a nice smooth cutting motion, because if you're cutting through live branches, maybe there's some sap or sticky liquids of some kind, boom, the non-stick really does a good job of making that still a smooth cutting process. Now, when you get to the stainless steel is going to last a lot longer in inclement weather. It's going to rust, but it rusts slower than high carbon steel. You're going to usually not get this coated. It's just going to be the stainless steel metal that we all know and love. It is slightly less tough than your high carbon. But for something like a SNIP, that's actually not a big deal, because you're not doing really heavy duty pruning tasks. And you can even get a bypass pruner, a larger one like this, that's stainless steel as well. You just have to be careful to not bump it or smash it into anything, because unlike the high carbon, it is a little bit less durable from a toughness perspective. The next thing we're going to talk about is the cutting mechanism. What's actually letting you open and close the blades? Most all of these are going to be spring powered. However, some are ratcheted. Oftentimes when you get an ANVIL pruner, you're going to get a ratcheted pruner, because it's going to help you quite a bit with getting some of that extra pressure to break down those tough, dry, and thick branches. I don't have a ratcheted pruner here, but just remember, if you want extra pressure on an ANVIL pruner such as this one right here, which is actually a spring-loaded one, you can go ahead and grab a ratchet one and just really crank down on it to give you some extra torque. Now, the most common, again, like I said, is going to be spring. So you have your unprotected spring like these SNIPS here, and then you have your protected springs like this one here. Either way, it's spring loaded. This one just might be a little bit more susceptible to getting hit or getting things wedged in there, pieces of dirt, etc. So if you do go with a naked spring, it may be best to just be really careful about how you're caring for that. This one's a little bit more hardy, because you can of course protect it and no dirt, grime, dust can get in there at least as easily. Then you have some sort of interesting mechanisms where this one looks like there's nothing powering it at all, but when you look on the inside of the blade, you can actually see that there's a little spring-loaded mechanism hidden within the blade handles themselves, which is pretty creative. Next thing to consider is the grip handle for ergonomics and ease of use. Now, the design is really up to you. It's sometimes best to try them out. This one, for example, has a little bump here that I can go ahead and wrap my index finger around for some extra pressure and some extra support when I'm doing those bypass pruning tasks. The SNIPS here are the same on both sides, but they're also coated with a little bit of soft rubber or soft rubber material that can help you when you're doing a lot of snipping for a long period of time. These bypass pruners right here actually have a rubberized coating as well, although some of them are all just straight up hard plastic. Now, if you're doing bypass pruning, ANVIL pruning, any of these hard pruning tasks, you just have to consider how much pressure you're applying to the actual handle and for how long you'll be applying that pressure, and that's going to determine if you want a softer grip or a harder grip. The harder grips are going to be more durable over time. The softer grips might deteriorate a little bit, or they may not just last as long, but they will be much more comfortable. And if you're doing a bypass pruning task for an hour or two, squeezing into these hard branches, it makes a lot of sense to go for comfort in that situation. Well, I hope this video gave you a good understanding of what type of pruner to choose, both from a task in the garden perspective, if you're doing live branches, precision cutting, pruning, or doing some chopping down of dead branches. Also, durability. comfort, the things that you care about in the garden from your hands perspective. Do you want to be pruning for a long time, maybe take a more comfortable handle with a more ergonomic shape? Or if you're in and out, you can choose something really nice and durable and just get the job done. Now, I would definitely encourage you to try out as many pruners as you can. Find one that works for you. There's some with some really interesting options here. This one has a 1-inch diameter cutting ability, but then you can flip a switch right here, and then it's shorter, and it's just shortened up a little bit, and you can come in for a more precision task. That's just with the flip of a little switch here. So really some unique opportunities and products out there. Certainly a fan of these lightweight and durable ones from Centurion Tools, so thanks to them for sponsoring the video, allowing me to show you a wide variety of different tools that you can consider in the garden. And I would really like to know, what type of pruning questions do you guys have from a more practical out in the garden perspective? Because what I'd like to do is take some of these tools out into the garden and really talk about pruning trees. I have a loquat tree outside that I need to get some pruning work done in. Pruning your actual vegetable garden, what do you need to learn in that area? Pruning houseplants and taking care of them as well. So definitely let me know down in the comments. And until next time, good luck in the garden, keep growing, and I'll see you in the next one.